1. So I always thought I had the worst neighbors growing up. So here is a list of all the neighbors I had. Going in no particular order, because I ordered this quite neatly, sent it to Hellfreezer, and he decided to rearrange it. That dang Hellfreezer. Ooh. We have a long piece of property, so all these people are on the border of the home I grew up in. All these happened when I was very young. The ex-wife. In short, she had a lot of trouble with her relationships. Every day she would be arguing with someone, usually over the phone, sitting outside on her porch. And then every couple of months, the topics, and supposedly the guys, would change too. My mom always warned me to stay away from the strange drunk men who would go in and out of her house all the time. The couple with the radio. Somehow, this was always the most annoying sound to me. But basically, this couple would just sit on their porch all year round, smoking weed and listening to the public radio. Every single day, the top hits from the 80s, alongside all the ads and the local news that just repeated over and over. I could hear it in my bedroom since they were the closest to me, and it drove me crazy. I still refuse to listen to any top hits from the 80s radio station since it just bored me to no end. The guy who's addicted to building sheds. Everyone loves construction noises, right? Well, this is the neighbor for you. Every year, once the seasons change to summer, he builds a new shed. And he does everything. He even got a welding kit a few years back, and now he welds together his own metal framing and whatever else. It would not surprise me in the slightest if someone told me he welded his own bike together. He's actually a really nice guy, but every summer, every single day, there's just hammering or power tools or woodworking noises. It gets all dusty, and the chemicals and paints he uses outside smell really bad. I would not mind in the slightest, but every single day, all summer long. The cows. The cows are really nice. They're literally just a field of cows. Moo. Every spring, they have baby cows. Moo. The horses. They're friendlier than the cows. The farmer let me feed them very long pieces of hay, so that I could keep my fingers away from their teeth. 2. The guy who mistreated his dogs. This guy to me is the pinnacle of the deadbeat dad. He had kids that would rarely ever visit him, and they never stayed the night if they did. He lived off of unemployment for the entire time I knew him. He had greasy hair, one pair of falling apart clothes. Now that I'm old enough to guess, I think he got into meth since he never ate or bought groceries that I saw. He looked like he never slept. He would yell at me sometimes to turn off our lights in the kitchen or bedroom, since they shone into his house. He always yelled at me across the fence very loudly, and it startled me every time. He had a small gun collection that he would clean outside sometimes, which is weird in Canada. He had a breeding pair of Dalmatians, with the idea being that he could sell the puppies. Instead, he always kept them separated, and the dogs obviously had really bad separation anxiety. They would be tugging at their chains, literal chains, no padding around their necks, and barking all the time whenever he locked them up on opposite sides of his yard. He wouldn't feed them either. My mom and I would throw food over the fence whenever he wasn't around. They were always really skinny, and their skin was often raw because whenever they would bark, he would kick them and yell at them to be quiet. I watched him push one of the dogs down the stairs once. We called the animal shelter, but they never had grounds to take them away for some reason. Since I'm sure everyone hates this guy, he died young at like 40. I don't know what from, but it was totally deserved. The new people who moved in said he left the place so dirty that they just ended up building a new house on the land. They still have bald spots on their lawn from where he'd pour gasoline into the ground. 3. The crazy lady. This is a long one, so we'll stick to the front page story. She would complain that my mother's fridge was too loud. That's right, folks, a good 40 meters, 160 feet, away from our house. She says she could hear the awful sounds our fridge was making. Was she crazy? Probably, because she dragged us to court over it. This is Canada. I have no clue what ground she took us to court on. But first, there is so much more crazy to get through. So, First, she tried to sue me, the child who had no legal ownership over the property. I was still in grade school. So the courts basically said, "Oh, you can't sue this person, this is a kid. You have to sue the owner of the fridge." So then she tried to convince us that this mistake was our fault, and that we had to give her the money to pay the court fees. My mom said no, obviously. Why would you ever pay someone else to sue you? We also knew she was crazy by then, so we just ignored her. She left us letter after letter demanding that we pay her court fees since the fridge was our responsibility. She even stated that since we didn't have to pay our mortgage due to the COVID relief, we could put that money towards her lawsuit. We still weren't really taking her seriously, so we just never replied to these letters. One day she sent a plumber to check on my mom's fridge. I opened the door, saw it was some kid from my school, and asked what was going on. He recognized me, so he just said his mom had sent him to check the fridge and drop off a letter. I took the letter and asked him if he could hear the fridge. He said no, so I told him that if he heard the fridge, he could come and look at it. He never came back. Then after that, I was home alone while my mom was at work. There was a knock at our door, so I went down to get it. Then there was a very angry, scary knock on our door, and I stopped midway down the stairs. At first I thought it was like a package or something, but I heard the malice in that knock and ran away to hide behind the corner. I didn't normally lock the door when my mom went out to work, so this meant the door was totally unlocked. She tested the doorknob and saw it was unlocked. She knocked some more, a lot quieter. And then she came inside, started to walk into our house, and then she saw me staring at her. When she saw me, she turned around and went back outside. I locked the door and called my mom immediately. I think she was planning on robbing us or exacting some kind of revenge. Because why else would she go inside of the house if it was empty? I got really good at locking the door after that. She ended up paying for the court fees herself, this time naming my mother, and we were all just waiting for the day it would happen. A huge storm surge came through our area, and it started raining hard. She had a basement entrance with a concrete pad that was set into the earth. Kind of like a giant swimming pool where one wall is the entrance to the basement. It had a drain in the bottom, but it was clogged. She was disabled. Her house was at risk of flooding. She couldn't fix it herself. My mom, ever kind and polite, sent me over to scoop the water out of the way. I wouldn't consider myself a very violent person, but God, I wanted to punch her that night. Here I was, scooping water with my back and my bucket. I am outside in a downpour, keeping her house from flooding. And she was sitting down in a chair, inside with the door open, to talk to me while I was working. She started bragging to me about how she was going to get my mother arrested, going through the whole thing about how once my mother was gone, there wouldn't be anyone else to look after me, and I would be on the streets, and that would serve me right. She was telling me how my mother would skinny up in prison, but she'd be in there so long she would certainly die there. I was old enough to know that wasn't what was going to happen. Again, she was suing us over a fridge being too loud. What a scumbag. I gave up and just went home. I think I did stop her house from flooding that night. Finally, there we were, in front of the judge, online over Zoom because it happened during COVID. My mom chose to bring me along as some kind of witness, I think, since we were the only ones living in our house. I don't remember having anything to say, but it wasn't that long of a discussion. The crazy lady explained how hard it was to live in such conditions. She even had a note from her naturopath, imagine a doctor without any degree, real training or credentials, that she was having panic attacks due to the excessive noise. My mom, trying so hard to be polite and professional, explained that it was a fridge, a normal fridge, and it made normal fridge noises. She produced an audio log of the fridge. Ooh, so cold. Ooh, ice cream is yummy. Ooh. She had a real plumber look at it and approve it, and she had the manual that listed the expected decibel level. I was there, ready to say that I slept right above the fridge and never heard it once. The judge ruled in our favor, and we went on with our life. She apparently submitted a claim again, but once the court saw it was a repeat issue, they told her she couldn't sue twice over the same issue. More, not soon enough, karma came when she lost her job. She was a hairstylist, and she rented a little space downtown. The man who rented her the space was a Jewish man. She went on a rant to him about how the Holocaust never happened, and it was all a government conspiracy. He kicked her out, and since she lost her job, she had to move out of her house as well. The new people who moved in said she left the kitchen totally moldy from a leak in the faucet that she never fixed. They had to buy all new cabinets and a fridge. 4. The Old Couple. When my mom first moved into the neighborhood, she was a new divorcee and a single mom. She didn't know a lot of people in the area, so looking at all the other neighbors we had, she had decided to start with the quiet old couple. She had this whole plan put together. She would bring them a plate of cookies as a kind, neighborly thing that would lead to a friendly conversation, and she was going to use one of her very nice plates to carry them over. Surely, since it was such a nice plate, they would have to bring it back, and then they'd be roped into another conversation. 2 conversations out of 1 plate of cookies, it was a flawless plan. So she walked over and knocked on their door. They all but ripped the plate out of her hands and slammed the door in her face. Anyways, this is the story she told me when I asked about doing Jump Rope for Heart around the neighborhood. Jump Rope for Heart is a charity campaign, where they asked elementary students to raise thousands of dollars for them in exchange for some stupid prizes. It was the kind of thing like if you raise $300, they send you a soccer ball, and if you raise $750, they'd send you a jump rope. So each kid would go door to door in their neighborhood and fundraise. My mom told me that if I go over there to the old couple's house, that I should get that plate back if I could, and if I couldn't, get as much money out of them as I could. She also sent me off with the stern warning to not go into anyone's house, no matter what. So I went over to the old couple's house. The wife greeted me, and I explained about the plate. She told me she threw it out, so I told her about the jump rope for Heart. She asked me which prizes I was saving up for and how far I was along. She told me she'd give me the extra $600 I needed for my goal. Average donation was like $20 to $40, so $600 was a lot, and that it was just inside her wallet and she would go get it. In the meantime, she invited me inside to have some tea with her. I told her politely, "No thank you. My mom said I couldn't go inside a stranger's house." "Well, we aren't strangers, we're neighbors." "I'm just going to grab my wallet. Come inside for some tea." I told her, "No thank you. I'm happy to stay here while you get your wallet." She disappeared inside the house and I waited outside. After a while, she came back and said, "Oh, it's taking me forever to find my wallet." "You should really come inside while you wait. I feel so bad you're outside in the cold." I told her, "I'm fine waiting, thank you." "How about I come by tomorrow so you don't have to feel guilty?" "No, stay here so I can give you your money. I won't be around tomorrow." She disappeared back inside her house. It turns out they had a pet bunny who found me, so I played with the bunny while I waited for her. One of my school friends had a pet bunny, so I asked my mom if I could have one. She said, "No, because we have cats, and they would eat the bunny if we got one." The old lady came back outside, still with no wallet. "Oh, you found our bunny. Do you like bunnies?" I was looking down, patting the bunny. "I do. One of my school friends has one. I asked my mom for one, but she said no." She looked down at me. "Your mom seems like a really cruel woman. She won't let you visit with your neighbors or have a bunny. You must be very unhappy." I looked up with her, confused as to why she was being so rude. "No, she said we can't have a bunny because our cats would eat it." The lady left, pretty angry looking from what I'd said. She finally came back with her wallet, gave me $5 and shut the door in my face. I went back home and told my mom about the weird lady. She hugged me very tight and said I made the right choice not going into her house, but also forbade me from going over there again. And that ends the little vignettes of the neighbors I used to have. They're almost all gone now, and the neighborhood feels a lot different. People say hi to each other and are very kind. It's a nice change. 5. I have lived in this gorgeous townhouse apartment for over 3 years now. The landlord is an actual person. The area is beautiful. The walls aren't prison white. It's the perfect location for my and my wife's commute. There's just one problem. We have a neighbor who wants to control everything that happens within 20 feet of their home, and they both share walls with other townhouses. In the past 3 years, they've run out 3 tenants on their other side with their complaints, including a family because they filed so many noise complaints on their toddler. It starts as noise complaints. On the day we moved in, my wife was talking to a friend while decorating the patio at 3 in the afternoon. And the neighboring wife ran out and asked her to be quiet because she works from home. We've been asked several times to not watch TV loudly. Sometimes when we don't have anything on at all. They called the police on us, alleging that we smoke pot when we don't, and we let the police officers search our place. My wife had been vaping, but she switched to smoking cigarettes to help quit in the last few months, down to 2 cigarettes a day from 8. Our lease allows for smoking on the patio, and the HOA had explicitly allowed it until last year, when it removed that rule but did not ban it. The neighbor has come by several times asking that my wife not smoke because his wife had cancer in the past, and it makes her concerned for her health. Genuinely, if they had not been dicks for so long, we would have worked with them, but the boy just cried wolf too many times. As of today, my landlord has said that we can break our lease early with no penalty, or sign an amendment to our lease to not smoke anywhere on the property, because the neighbor has been messaging him daily threatening to sue for assault and nuisance, and saying that my wife's smoking has caused his wife's cancer. Yes, they're willing to lie about having cancer currently when the argument for sympathy didn't work. Now, as much as I hate it, we are looking for options to move out and get some peace. Even if we know it's a downgrade, but I don't intend to go quietly. Aside from reporting some HOA violations on them, and taking advantage of the non-quiet hours to play some choice songs outside, I was considering participating in this Wiccan prosperity ritual that requires throwing aggressive mint seeds into the air, which might happen to land in the neighbor's garden. I also did some deep digging on the two of them, like I have found the divorce decree from her parents when she was 8 and his father's obituary. I have been texting the local Mormons for days because they're apparently vetting visit requests, and I do so hope these Mormons can help them deal with their trauma. Maybe we should display some signage. For the National Children of Divorce Day and Father's Day is coming up too. It's extremely messed up, absolutely, but it's all public record, and who's to say it isn't from a genuine longing for them to get their heads screwed on tighter. I just hate them because they're going to get exactly what they want if they drive us out, and it's likely going to be a huge downgrade for us. My wife's nicotine habit isn't the driving force, of course, but we're all 30-year-olds and we're pretty sick of feeling like we can't do what we want, and that's perfectly legal in a property we pay for. Even if she quits and we sign the amendment, they'll probably lie about smelling smoke just like they lied about the pot. Heck, they might not even have to lie about smelling it. Our neighbors on the other side smoke too. But I'm sure the burden of proof for the violations that would evict us is just their testimony instead of an official report from the police, as in the case of smoking pot. It's so messed up that they can drive people out so effectively and no one can do the same to them. Update. A bit anticlimactic, but here it is. I and my wife are planning to move out as our landlord is not supporting us, and it's draining my wife's mental health. As much as I'd enjoy seeing my neighbors eat it, with a variety of suggestions that people made in the comments on the Reddit post, you would think that as a cancer survivor, as she claims, I don't believe it, that she'd have bigger concerns than how loud her neighbor talks on their patio. Hellfreezer's note. The only advice I'll give there, since you've decided to move out, which I think is the right decision, don't move into a place with an HOA. I think that's part of the problem here. Find yourself somewhere nice and comfortable that doesn't have one of those. Maybe, if possible, with a little bit of distance from your neighbors so that there's no legitimate reason to complain. Or, if possible, this might sound a little stalkery, but I know you have good Google powers, you did say that in the story. Before you decide to move into a neighborhood, do a little research on your neighbors. I know that's not standard, but, just find out who they are. Find out what their history is. Maybe you'll get an idea for the kind of person they are. Assuming they have social media, you should be able to get a good idea for the kind of people you'll be living next to. But whatever happens, I hope it works out, and that both you and your wife feel a lot less stressed. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Naughty Neighbours, Episode 3. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories and sent in stories for use in this video. Before you go, please hit the like button and share the video with friends and family. If you'd like early access to these videos, you get them all on a Monday all at once, then you can support me on my Patreon page, which is linked in the description, for as little as $1 or more a month. You'll also find a link in the description to the Hellfreezer merchandise store on Teespring, as well as the Hellfreezer Discord if you'd like to join. And if you really enjoyed today's video, you can leave a tip by clicking on the heart with the $sign underneath the video. And while that is not necessary, it is very much appreciated, and it's very much helpful. Okay, no other bits of business today, so let's move right along to Hellfreezer's question of the day. Today's question is, do you talk to your neighbors? That might seem like a weird thing to a lot of you. Of course I talk to my neighbors, why wouldn't I? Well, I don't. I don't have a problem with them, but at most I'll say occasionally a hello or a good morning. But yeah, I can honestly count on one hand the number of conversations I've had with my neighbors in my lifetime. And that's kind of the way I like it. I keep to myself. As long as they keep to themselves and don't make a lot of noise, I don't care. But other people are different, so why don't you let me know what you think in a comment below. And before we go, let's have the answer of the day from a previous video. And this question was in relation to neighbors who were being presumptuous of what they were allowed to do to your property. And today's answer comes from Dust Warden. As a lifelong renter, I've had all sorts of neighbor trouble, but thankfully nothing that I noticed done to my property. My car has always been pretty much the only thing accessible to neighbors, and I'm grateful it's been left alone. Thankfully, I didn't see too many comments about people saying they had massive problems with neighbors. There were a few, but it gives me a little bit of hope that it's not as common as it seems. And with that, I'm going to head off from now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.